keep going back to, man, they sold a lot of iPhones. Yes, it's still slightly shorter than estimates, but still they're selling far more than almost every smartphone maker out there. Why are investors and analysts so down?
Yeah, it was their best third quarter ever in the history of the company, yet it just wasn't quite good enough. It's because a lot of it is because of it's setting the expectation for this quarter that we're in and going into the holiday season. Analysts are really looking for a lot of extra growth to help their thesis that the company can continue to see the record growth going into next year with the iPhone 6S or 6S Plus that we expect to be named.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the watch, because Tim Cook was so effusive about how well the watch is doing. Take a quick listen to what he had to say.
Sales of the watch did exceed our expectations, and they did so despite supply still trailing demand at the end of the quarter. And to give you a little additional insight, through the end of the quarter, in fact, the Apple Watch sell-through was higher than the comparable launch periods of the original iPhone or the original iPad.
So if the watch is doing so well, Tim, it just brings me back to why won't they tell us how many they sold? Apparently, according to Bloomberg data, it's looking like 1.9 million watches shipped.
Or at least 1.9. CFO talked to me about how the increased revenue in the segment that the watch is being included in was more than 100% because of the watch. That would suggest if an average sale price of $400, $500 or so, that maybe we get to almost 2 million. Analysts are saying maybe 2.5. Really, what the issue here is, Apple is saying they don't want to tip their competitors of how the watch is doing in various ways as they go forward. This is a new product, and they want to see how it does in the marketplace.
So let's talk about your interview with the CFO, Luca Maestri, who told you about China. There's been a bit of volatility in the equities markets, but we think that's a relatively small portion of the Chinese economy. When we look at the macro conditions in China, we couldn't be more positive. So, Brian, I have to bring you in on this here, because the revenue from China doubled year over year, and yet it fell as a percentage of total revenue. How significant is that?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And we look at this as, people love thematics, and they want to tie Apple into larger softness in China and other issues that may be occurring. We don't see that at all. We have to remember that this quarter was a quarter that followed the quarter with the Chinese Lunar New Year. So imagine Christmas occurring in Q1 rather than in our Q4. So you see massive growth in that Q1 period in China because of the Lunar New Year. Then we saw really nice year-over-year growth in Q2. Obviously didn't necessarily match Q1, but it's still phenomenal growth.
So Apple says they're not worried about the volatility. Should they be?
I would say that they should not be at this point. I would say that China is still greenfield opportunity for Apple for many different reasons, especially with the iPhone. It's almost the entry-level luxury product for this entire aspirational middle class that's really coming online in China right now and looking for ways to show their new status. Nothing says it like the iPhone right now.